searching for answers.
Here are today's top stories.
It's been over 24 hours.
And the local news.
What we see are a lot of things that are going on the earth.
This is Art of Heaven News Talk.
Broadcasting live from WHPC studios in Garden City, New York. This is Art of Heaven News Talk, where we deliver global, national, and local news through the lens of faith. I'm your host, Johnny Brumit, and joining me today are my co-hosts, my personal business consultant and friend, Steve Varughese, and the man who's done it all, from storm chasing to preaching the paint off the walls, Dan Bartucci. If you want to join the conversation, lines are open at 516-572-7440. It's 516-572-7440. All right, well, we are always up on the news, keeping an eye out for you. So here are the biggest headlines of the week. Kamala Harris accepts her party's presidential nomination at the DNC convention in Chicago.
The delegates at the Democratic National Convention, well, they just completed their roll call, and they have nominated Coach Walz and me to be the next Vice President and President of the United States of America.
Wow, you cannot make this stuff up. This election year is crazy, that's for sure. Also in the news, divers recovered the body of the last missing victim from the tech giant Mike Lynch's yacht that sinks off of Sicily. This story is taking so many turns, and I think it's gonna go on like that for a while. A man successfully rows across the Atlantic for a good cause. Yes, I said rows. Tom Waddington did it alone, and to raise money for a charity called Mind. A telecom company is paying up $1 million after transmitting a deepfake robocall of President Biden's voice. Yes, the AI revolution has begun, if you're not aware of it already. And Chick-Fil-A is coming up with its own streaming service. Word on the streets has it, this is a real thing. They really are. So we're gonna get into all this, okay? We got a lot to unpack here this week. So let's start with the DNC this week. It's been all over the news. That's all we're hearing about every day, DNC convention. So Kamala Harris accepted the nomination, obviously, from it going from Biden to her and all the drama over this whole election season. Like, this is such a crazy year. They always are, but this one seems like it's just taking so many turns. How do you guys, Steve, Dan, how do you guys navigate this election year with your own lives, your own friendships, relationships, your families? You know, how do you do it?
Well, me personally, I when you were just asking that question, I had this flashback to, remember when you were kids and you played musical chairs? I feel like the last person to stand will be the one to get knocked out of this presidential race. That's how I feel, and that's how I take it. What about you, Dan?
Yeah, I'm worried that you keep saying, what do you think about the election year? Because we have, 70 odd days left.
We got 11 weeks.
We have, I don't know if we've seen it all yet this election year. I think we're coming off the conventions, which tend to be, part pomp and circumstance, part ceremony, and a rallying cry for both parties. I watch, both acceptance speeches from Trump and from Harris. They're not the meat of the issues that, voters and certainly undecided voters are going to need to get to. They're kind of a rallying cry. Again, historic for Kamala being the first, woman of color to be nominated for president of the United States. We need to move on quick from these conventions and actually get into the real meat. 60, 70 odd days to make a decision is not a lot of time. Now, you asked me, how do you deal with it when you're home at the dining room table or you're with friends? Grace, first and foremost, right? We really have to be loving. We have to have that, as scripture would say, seasoned with salt conversations, because this is a polarizing time, but it's important that we work on the issues. We and extend grace to others that we're having the conversations with.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Well, I was going to take an opposite take on this.
Fire away,
I
dude.
just say just duke it out and let's see who stands. So the way I look at it is if a pep rally is going to decide who's going to win, then we're in trouble.
We're in a world of trouble.
Yeah. I think we just don't look. I think we look at orators and we're like, oh yeah, he gave a great message, and we stay away from the topics, and then we look at each other like, what's happening to our country? Us is what happened to our country. We didn't hold our politicians accountable. We didn't go to town hall meetings. We didn't, speak up when we had to. Instead, we listened to the sound bites. And we took away that to be what decided our votes instead of what's really hurting us.
But I think that's part, Stephen, into how we're consuming information today, right? We consume information in sound bites. And I would say, I'll put Johnny on the spot here, right? You hear or you get rumor that there's a major news story, maybe even with the Trump assassination. Are you putting on the news first, or are you opening your social media feed? Yeah. Right?
Hey, I like my Instagram scroll. I'll be honest, especially for the news. Yeah,
but that's we're consuming things in sound bites. I remember, and it was even, I think it might be even 10 years ago. Now, British Airlines jets taking off from Las Vegas, engines catch fire. Okay, everybody's okay. Plane stops on the runway. People are evacuating. Before it hit regular news, the boom, the Gen X in me is going to come out. Before it hit like news where people broke in, it's streaming. Right? People are live streaming themselves, jumping on the evacuation slides. People start trading on General Atlantic, who are the engine makers, on Boeing, who's the manufacturer of the plane, before Channel 2 or CNBC goes, hey, this plane happened to be on fire. The reason why I'm saying that is because that's how political information, that's how you understand where people are on policies. You're getting the snippet of these parties, of these rallying cries, these high school pep rallies that we have every 4 years. We're not, and I like where you're going, Steve, we're not having concrete debates. And I hope whenever that is scheduled for, coming up in early September, I
September
think.
10th.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, get popcorn for that. That'll be worthwhile.
So you're saying it's just an engine. It's just a wild animal out there that nobody really has control of. This whole...
I think... That's the thing. I think we do have control over it. We just don't want to. I think it's like itching ears, like what the Bible says. We do have itching ears. Well, like, what's going to make me happy today? What's going to give me that adrenaline rush?
We want to hear what we want to hear.
Yeah, and take away from our problems. What our problems steer us to social media or to the sound bites, right? And we never address our problems. And because of that, we come in this cycle all the time. And that's what ends up happening, in my opinion. But, the word does say that for all authority comes from God, and those in positions of authority have been placed there by him. So that's like the final thing that I would have to, I can sleep at night knowing that they being placed is not far from his thought. So I could take rest in that. But I also have to do my due diligence and look into topics as economy being number one,
Yeah.
Because like if we can afford to live, then how are we going to live?
Yeah.
And
be involved. Be involved.
Be
definitely.
involved. Absolutely.
Yeah, please be an educated voter.
Yes.
Whatever box you check, please. Or now you take the pencil, and I can't stand it. You take the pencil, right, and you fill in the little oval. I couldn't wait growing up to go in the booth where you had the curtain and you had to physically do the checks. Now, okay, whatever box you fill in with pencil and then go get it scanned here in Nassau County, very low budget here, no problem. Just be educated about it.
Yeah.
Please don't just take the Instagram or the TikTok soundbite that you think hit the issue. Let's be educated about it. Steve, to your point, God is on the throne.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think we have to take some solace in that, and comfort in that. But please just be educated.
Or start a movement, where you throw a party of just at your own house. Okay, let's look at the topics ourselves.
That's dangerous.
With your neighbors.
This is
I know it could be
You're trying to have a family feud.
Yes. I think I'm all for the family feud.
No, because in all reality, as Obama said, it is a divided country. I was listening to some of the stuff at the DNC.
This will still be a tight race in a closely divided country.
Now, I just want people to get involved. Like you said, Steve, I want people to be involved, play their part, but not let it get to them completely and destroy relationships.
Yeah.
Right? So at the end of the day, if Trump makes it into the office or Kamala makes it into the office, our lives are still going to go on, and I still am going to do what I got to do. My life is not going to crash and end because of this, all right? We just have to move on and still get along with people, man. I just want to value relationships over politics.
Absolutely.
So you're listening to Art Heaven News Talk on 90.3 WHPC. And as we move on to our next story, so this next story this week that came out is kind of a complicated one, I should just say. This guy, Mike Lynch, his yacht went down off of Sicily, and everybody sadly passed away. They've recovered the last victim, and I don't even know where to start with this story. Okay, first of all, he's a tech giant. This guy's like the Bill Gates in Europe, right? Now, can you give us a little background of why it's such a complicated, kind of a conspiracy theory type of story, Steve?
Oh, well, I don't know about that, but what I'll tell you is maybe I feel like billionaires probably stay off the sea. First we had the Titan, now we have this. Remember the Titan that blew up?
The immersible ship that blew up going to see the Titan. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
or imploded.
It imploded, right. So Mike Lynch is a tech entrepreneur in the UK, and he's pretty well known out there in that space, across the pond. And what ended up happening was he had a fraud case against him, and in that fraud case he got acquitted of fraud, and he's like, oh, I got a second chance at life, so let me live my life, my second chance at life with my family and my kids. And this was one of the ways he was going to go about doing it, because he was acquitted on June 6th of this year. And not just a little over 2 months is when this happens. And you see how somehow he wasn't much far off the coast, and they sank around 165 feet below sea, right? It's not that deep. And so they left their anchor, and then a freak accident happened with the thunderstorm, and
a storm whipped up out of nowhere and sunk this thing.
Right. And they were left in the cabins, unfortunately. And a lot of them were found in their cabins, and some of them were rescued, but Mike Lynch and his daughter unfortunately passed away. And it goes to show that how, it doesn't matter if you're rich, it doesn't matter if you're poor, it doesn't matter if you're righteous, it doesn't matter if you're unrighteous, it doesn't matter if you're a Mets fan or a Yankee fan. God allows things to happen to everybody, and there's no favorites. So, when I read this story, I'm looking at it like it could have happened to me. It's not about my socioeconomic status that it didn't happen to me or it did happen to him. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just happened.
The rain falls on the good and the evil.
Right. The just and the unjust. Right.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. That's why I got you, Steve, in here.
Right.
So, the crazy part is there's a lot of people on this ship, including a chairperson of Morgan Stanley International, and just lawyers. And then another incident happened, also kind of associated with a guy who was hit by a car that was, I think, a co-defendant in that case at the same day. So there's just a lot of weird things, and it is what it is. I'm just saying that there's some people are really looking at this like it's a true crime, ID.
I don't think you could ever make up a tornado in the middle of the sea,
True. That's what you think. But then, even the manufacturers of the yacht are like, this is way too many crazy things happening all at once for this to happen. Maybe they're just standing by their product. I don't know.
There's something odd. I think I hear where you're going, right? Which, God there could be some punishment from above that some of these folks couldn't escape. I don't think, I don't want to believe that's the case here, right? People did lose their lives, so we're respectful for that. But there is guaranteed to be a movie or something on Netflix probably within 6 months.
Yeah, it's okay to have an investigation.
You want to know something, John? The verse you quoted, right before the verse you quoted, the Lord asks us to love our enemies, and he says to be children of the Father. because he causes the sun to rise on the evil and the good, the just and the unjust.
Wow.
So no matter what happened to this guy, we are still responsible to love our enemies.
Absolutely. Now, thank you for giving the full context to that scripture, because, it rains down on the just and the unjust, right? And we hope the best for the man's family. Condolences to the whole family. That's tragic. He was the breadwinner, to say the least. But as we move on to our next story, keeping that in mind, it rains on the just and the unjust, right? Here at Art of Heaven News Talk, we're gonna move on to our next story, which is about a guy that rode from North America all the way across the Atlantic to England. Now, this is a crazy story because he did this all by himself, okay, for a charity called Mind, advocating for mental health and so on. Now, Tom Waddington did this all by himself. He was a ski instructor, and do you know, this is kind of crazy. Like, when I actually saw the YouTube videos of certain parts along the trip, it really put it into perspective for me.
It's frightening.
Yeah, I mean, there was a moment where whales, and they say over 1,000 whales, and I thought, how could they say 1,000? Well, I saw this video, and there was whales for days just jumping up and down all around him, up to 2 feet from his boat.
Yeah, I heard that story too, that there were whales and other sea creatures around him for a few hours. And also, that's the fun part, but he also got capsized twice, I think, for the very least. Yeah, he was saying on the video, he's like, I hope they don't hit my rudder, right? So, but think about why he started doing this. So he lost his girlfriend in a car accident in 2020, and he decided to do something in her honor for a charity called Mind, right? And this propelled him. So in a place of hurt, the motivation was to do something charitable and to row across. He did it from Canada to the UK first. And then he did it from New York City he ended up in Sicily because of a storm the second time.
Yeah.
But think about the motivation. Some people, men or women, you were motivated by a lot of things. But if tragedy can motivate us to do good, and he raised 62,000 pounds, which is around $82,000 for that charity just by doing this.
Man.
When
was the last time you did anything for a cause, Dan?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I don't think I've ever done anything Herculean as row the Atlantic. I know if Nathan was here, there would have been 6 or 7 puns by now about rowing your boat across. But I think, to your point, Steve, an incredible charity, one that needs a lot of attention, both in Europe and the United States, and helping those with mental health issues and mental health needs. I can't imagine what that is. Yeah. It's also odd that we're talking about the sea again. Right, we're putting ourselves in the ocean, which will always try to kill you, but good for him. That's an incredible accomplishment.
I was reminded of Noah's Ark, with all the animals inside the ark, but then he was around the sea, right? He was around water for 40 days and 40 nights, and he made it.
Yeah, that's crazy though. Just being all by yourself, going across the ocean.
Thanks. Have you seen videos of even people on the cruise ships when they take videos or photos of the sea at night?
Oh,
yeah.
Dude.
That's frightening.
I thought about it though. How's he cruising along, and then he takes an 8-hour nap? You know what I'm saying?
But he's so close to the water.
I mean, but what's he do when he drifts? When he drifts off, is he put an anchor down, so it doesn't just drift in the wrong direction? I don't know.
You don't have a conspiracy theory for this one? That he's got a motorized boat under it?
I'm
surprised.
He cheated. I don't know. Well, listen, one other crazy story in this wild week is a telecom company transmitted a deepfake robocall of President Biden with his voice, and they're paying for it. They're paying $1 million. Okay, the Federal Communications Commission, it went at them. They enforced the action against them, and they're paying $1 million. Now, it just kind of it's kind of mind blowing now. We all knew it was coming, but this is gonna just spawn a whole ton of lawsuits, right?
Just the start. I wish we had a clip of it.
What a bunch of malarkey. We know the value of voting Democratic when our votes count. It's important that you save your vote for the November election. We'll need your help in electing Democrats up and down the ticket. Voting this Tuesday only enables the Republicans in their quest to elect Donald Trump again. Your vote makes a difference in November, not this Tuesday.
But yeah, apparently, and it was politically motivated, obviously, but, you know, the the person that managed to get a hold of the airwaves, and it was Joe Biden's voice, I think it was New Hampshire.
Yep.
And the recording was telling people to stay home for the Democratic primary.
Okay.
But these are the types of crimes and activities that affect, you know, certainly seniors and the elderly that are most prone to this. This, AI voice spoofing, it's just getting started. Bad actors are working all the time to leverage the latest technology. So, AI voice and AI response is cool. Some of the drive-thrus in the United States have put it on, and they're getting your order without human being interaction. You can say that's good or bad. It's probably not great.
Yeah.
But make no mistake, people are using this for all the wrong reasons. And if something looks suspicious, feels suspicious, comes at you suspiciously, it probably is.
Bad. I just look in the future. In the future, it's going to be hard to tell what's reality and what's not, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's say, just bear with me, Dan, for a minute. Like, let's say this whole Book of Revelation thing unfolds, right? And there's a beast with 1 foot on land and 1 foot on water. Let's call it California, and then it's got a foot in the Pacific Ocean, right? And people all over are streaming, taking videos or whatnot, right? With all this AI going on, that's not really too abnormal. Like, people on the other side of the world are just going to be like, nah, that's just AI.
Yeah. Well, we need Mark here if you're going to start quoting Revelation.
Yeah,
You're going to have him call in, Mark.
I'm just throwing it out there like...
But it's, again, that is part of the new reality that we're living in. I think of Back to the Future. Had it right. Back to the Future 2 when he goes into the 80s cafe and it's Ronald Reagan on a TV taking his order. We're there, folks. It's 2024. But I just can't stress enough from where you will see is people will leverage technology for evil and not for good.
Yeah, I agree with the both of you on AI. AI is something that has literally a mind of its own. But the irony is when the robocall was telling them to stay home for the primary is also how Kamala Harris got the nomination, which is ironic, you know, because there was no primary for her.
Well, there was no primary and she got the nomination anyways. We need a whole other show to talk about this. Unfortunately, this goes against, this makes it hard too. Like I talk to my father all the time about embracing technology and not, operating in that it's the 1960s again. And then these things happen and he's like, I can't trust anything. And
my question is, like, the businesses are going to always push the envelope. Mm-hmm. And the federal government is always reactionary when it comes to regulation. Now, I don't like a lot of regulation for companies, but at the same time, AI is going to be a beast where you don't know how to regulate until it's like kind of too late. And I remember when I was in business class, the teacher said, "You'll learn this in business ethics." And we all had a chuckle because the question is, what is business ethics? Mm-hmm. It is so ambiguous. There is no absolutes with business ethics. And the business law never changes, but business ethics does. Mm-hmm. So where do we now draw our lines with AI? That's the question.
Interesting.
I think it's going to get drawn between convenience and problems, right? Because some of us will like the convenience factor of what these tech is doing for us.
All right, so I got a question for you then, Steve. Business ethics, all right? So do you think it's ethical for a restaurant chain like Chick-Fil-A to start a streaming service, which they're doing, actually? Let's look at this news story. They're starting their own streaming service platform. Chick-Fil-A. And you know what's crazy?
Yeah.
Yo, McDonald's better watch out because Chick-Fil-A is coming for them.
Yeah. I, in my personal opinion, I think it's unethical for Chick-fil-A to branch out and diversify, only because I like their chicken so much. I'm like,
just
please
don't let it distract from the chicken.
Right,
what they're doing so well. Yeah.
You got a good thing, don't fix something that's not broken.
Well, with all this news going on, don't get riled up. Just remember, God says, "Fear not, for I am with you." So remember that. God is always with you. This is Art of Heaven News Talk. I want to thank Steve Varughese, Dan Bartucci. I'm Johnny Brumit. Check us here every Friday, 3:30 to 4. East Coast time. God bless.
Good weekend.